All right, welcome everyone to the 10th episode of the GenAI CIO Podcast. This is Rishabh, and I've been joined by my co host Shiva today to discuss another round of updates from the world of GenAI, right? And I think since the time we started, and we are now today on the 10th week of the updates, I don't think so. And Shiva, correct me if I'm wrong, we've gone a week, right, without probably either a new model getting launched or a variant of a new model getting launched, right? So the space is definitely abuzz, right? But how many of these are useful is something that we probably try to also assess, right? So what I wanted to start with, Shiva, is a very interesting update. Is that Meta, while obviously they have had earlier models of Llama, which were very or which helped developers in generating codes, like they had the Python version and they had the instruct version, but they were very focused towards doing certain set of tasks. Like the Llama Python version, code Python version was focused more on generating the Python code. Instruct version was
Yeah,
more focused towards certain tasks like searching, sorting, etc. But now what they've done is they've actually introduced code 7B, right, which at least from Peta's perspective they claim to be one of the
70B.
best. Correct.
No,
Uh,
70B. 70B. Yeah.
yeah, 70B, right?
Yeah.
At least from Meta's perspective, they claim to be like one of the most mature code generation models. It not only helps in generating code snippets, right, and across and it has at least from the human eval metric perspective, it has scored well in the in generating code for across 164 languages, programming languages, and I think the score that it actually got of around 67.8, right, was quite comparable to closed source models like Gemini Pro and GPT-4, right?
Yeah.
But it also helps in debugging of existing written code or human written code as well, right? So writing as well as debugging is what they're actually launching, right?
Yeah.
So good update. It's available on Hugging Face, and again, as Meta always does, it's open source for any kind of research purposes, right? It's available on Hugging Face. The code is also available for you to try it out on GitHub, right? So I think we'll also try this out very soon and share our perspective. But a really good update, Shiva, to begin with.
No, it's a fantastic update, especially for companies who want to build things private within their ecosystem without data leaving the environment. No, they don't have to rely on GPT-4, which is the state-of-the-art model. They can also use Llama 70B. And you know what I'm really excited about? I'm excited about the variations of the Llama 70B that's going to come to the market. Now if you go to Hugging Face Leader dashboard, there is one Llama 34B, Code Llama 34B instruct model, which was already fine-tuned by someone, which is performing on par with GPT-4 already. Now, I'm just wondering what that person and others could do with the 70B model that's available now. So, serious competition to the existing GPT-4 and Gemini models. I don't know what GPT-5 has in store, but from an enterprise standpoint, companies who want their code to remain within their premises, within their environment, this is a fantastic thing. Mark Zuckerberg is keeping his promise of his open source AGI, and I don't know about AGI yet, but I can say that this is just going to make a lot more things easier. I mean, I'll tell you, models like these will allow many companies like Cursor.sh. Cursor is a fantastic company now. Cursor.sh and many other platforms to emerge where they can provide IDEs like Replit, for example, and other existing companies can also integrate this internally. Tab9, etc. They can integrate these models internally and they can enrich their capabilities, Stack Overflow and stuff. So I think yeah, open source is crazy and it's fantastic. All kudos to the launch. And I'm just wondering what will happen next year. I mean, what will happen if they continue to improve these models eventually to an extent where with one single prompt you could probably build a Facebook kind of an app. Uh, I mean, Rishabh, you and I know this. We've been doing this. We know that it's not going to be anytime near. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of I don't know. We don't know whether it's even possible given the nuances involved in taming these LLMs because these are large language models are non-deterministic in nature. So taming them, getting the output is what these models do eventually. with their instruct things. So I don't know when will we get there, but I think we are on the right path towards that. So yeah,
No, I
great,
totally agree, Shiva.
great.
I think one is the launch of these models that you, as you highlighted, right? But most importantly, how are these models getting adopted, right? Like even Microsoft Copilot, for that matter, where obviously the distribution channel for something like which is bundled together with your 365 and helps developers,
Yeah,
business users, in doing a lot of things, right? It's still in preview, and again, I think as I highlighted in the last podcast, when I spent a lot of time across these videos and so on, and reading people's reviews, while it's a good tool to probably experiment with right now, right? But they really, especially for tasks like more complicated tasks like Excel based tasks or coding based tasks, they've not been able to see a lot of value out of it. Now that's where these open source models, right, where you have access to base functionality, but you still can improve on top of it, I think probably could be a game changer, right? Will they be or
yeah,
not? I think will come to, but definitely bring an advantage on probably something like a Copilot that we have at hand.
yeah, 100%. What next?
Right.
So GPT-4 came up with, I mean, OpenAI came up with few major upgrades. First of all, they made the GPT-4 Turbo preview model available, general availability for all. And there are from some new embedded models embedding models as well available. Earlier, I think we had the text ADA 2 for quite some time, but now you have text embedding 3, small and large, that have come out. Because there is also a lot of open source competition in the embedding space as well, right? You have BGE, you have Voyage, you have Gina, you have a lot of embedding models available. Even Cohere has one. So yeah, OpenAI launching that makes a lot of our lives easier, because I think what we are seeing is customers are super fine using OpenAI LLMs, right? Like GPT-4 and OpenAI models. What customers are not fine is using third-party SaaS products or third-party re-ranking products or third-party vector databases, because then their core data gets shared with multiple venues, and they don't want to do that. But they are okay to share with OpenAI because they are the state-of-the-art model. You don't have a choice. Like you literally you want to use them. Like how people use Salesforce or AWS. So this is going to make our life easier, obviously, to integrate generative. I mean, our SDKs and solutions, custom solutions with generative AI. And I think the last update is the GPT-0.5 Turbo is also kind of optimized, both from cost perspective. The prices for the input and the output tokens have come down a bit. All in all, fantastic update from GPT-4. On this point, I want to kind of tell the viewers something about choosing the right model for the right job. So this question always comes out, okay, when should I use GPT-4? When should I use 3.5? And it largely depends on the kind of reasoning capability that they want. Because from a knowledge standpoint, GPT-4 has a lot of knowledge, obviously. 3.5 has probably 1/10 from a knowledge standpoint. But from a reasoning capability, again, GPT-4 is slightly better reasoning, because I think the rumor is that they have 110 experts model in the backend. GPT 3.5 doesn't have so many. So reasoning also kind of is better with GPT-4. But GPT-5 is 3.5 is fantastic for as long as you have your own internal data. If you have a lot of internal data that you can pass through a vector data store, you don't need GPT-4, because GPT-5 is fantastic when it comes to understanding the context and putting out a response in a readable manner. So a lot more thinking has to go in from the customer side as well when it comes to choosing the right LLMs. But all in all, again, I think OpenAI is just pushing the boundaries on the cost part.
And what I really, and one thing that you just mentioned, that the time spent on model evaluation, which and this we see, and probably we've been part of a lot of these CIO conversations, where they want to leverage GPT-4 or probably now GPT-4 Turbo, obviously, right? But one thing I definitely love about OpenAI is that they don't just release the next model and then forget the previous one, right? They actually have
Yeah,
constant adaptability, constant improvements to the previous models as well to make it more consumable, right? But second is, I think model evaluation is very critical, as you highlighted, right? For a lot of use cases, probably GPT-4 Turbo, or probably I would probably speak more from the GPT-4 because the pricing is pretty high, is an overkill, right? So I think model evaluation probably for any customer or any business that's actually adopting, right? You should spend, if you know, if you're spending 10 days on your project, just taking an example, you should at least be spending 3 to 4 days only on model evaluation to select the right model, and then probably the right technique as well, right? Probably every use case is not a fine tuning use case, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we do with our customers very exclusively, right? So a good input here over there.
What do we have
Right.
next?
So from OpenAI to Google, right? Obviously, we are still waiting for the Ultra to come in, and at least I'm not aware when exactly it's coming out. But in the meanwhile, Google definitely dropped the bomb last week on the whole generative AI world by releasing something called as Lumiere, which they are claiming to be one of the best, text to video generation tools today, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Now, what does it bring on the Sorry, what does it bring on the table, right, Shiva? How is it different? What's the hoopla around? So one, just as again, a caveat, it's still available only for research purposes. Google hasn't released this for commercial purposes yet, right? Uh, Now, what they are claiming, right, and at least I saw the video, the launch video, right? There are multiple capabilities that you can do. One, obviously, is with just a set of prompts, you can generate a complete video of up to 5 seconds, right? You can even edit the existing videos just to probably change the effects, which I feel is pretty, at least, and in the video it appeared to be really good, state of the art. But what I really liked about it is that you can leverage your existing images. So just imagine, Shiva, I have, and people who would have seen the launch video would have seen that same example. I have a beer, right? And I've drawn a picture of a beer. And I want to use that as a reference for the dancing beer video, right? So I can just probably give that image as a reference and then probably generate my prompt to leverage that as a, image or a reference, right?
So
Now,
you said
one
bear.
more
You mean
thing.
bear. You mean bear, the like the grizzly bear. Okay. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I didn't
Okay.
mean the drinking beer. Sorry. I would love
Yeah.
to see a
Yeah. Okay.
dancing beer. That's going to be my first test with Lumiere Shiva. But another thing that they are stating, which probably makes them stand out or generate better videos, is the architecture that they're using. So till date, any of these, frame-based generation models that we've actually seen is what they do is they generate the first frame and the last frame, and then there's kind of a connection between the frames that actually happens. How transformer models work, right? Which probably is the guess, the
Hmm.
next model, right? But
Yeah.
what Lumiere is doing is that they're generating the whole video in one shot, and there's some calling this something as space-time unit architecture, right? So your
Yeah.
prompt gets passed to this architecture in one go, and the whole video is actually generated in one shot instead of generating the beginning and the end frame and then guessing the next frame and so on, right? So again, all I've seen yet is the video. Having known Google in the past, Shiva, right? Till the time I don't get to try, I'm not going to give my verdict at least, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's again the issue, right? I mean, we have to try to really see what's the merit behind it. But seems to be a good tech out. My take is slightly different. I would say we are seeing, Rishabh, we are seeing that customers are still trying to find use cases to adopt text models. Forget about image, they're text models. We talk about video models here. So I think the applicability of video models and image models are not even widespread because we are in the early stages of adopting the text models, right? So chat, search, generators, these things are happening already as we speak. So yeah, it's a good. I mean, it might be for the future, but nevertheless, it's a good start to be honest.
So I have one another, and Shiva, while I cannot state the exact use case under NDA, but there's a use case, an image generation use case that our team has been working on for a few months now, right?
Hmm.
So what I feel, there are definitely use cases, right, that we are seeing in the market, especially on the generation. And I'm not saying talking about video yet. I think at least to the image and the content generation side, right? I think there are two things that are actually limiting at least implementation of these at professional or skilled level, right? One is what we've seen in our experience with this particular project is the lack of the right where the customers are not trying to understand the target state that they want to get with these generation uses. So they, in their mind, they have, okay, I want to generate, on the fly custom images. But, till the time we don't know that target state, because everything, as you know, is depends on the prompts, right? Sure, that you're actually generating, right? It's as intelligent as you probably can have your prompts to be, right? So I think one is that lack of understanding of what the target state should be, right? And where we are educating our customers heavily onto, right? And number two is again, and this is not just for the generation use cases, but overall as well, right? Is that these systems are not like your application development systems where you've just given the requirements and then probably, one, two, three, four, five, six tasks are converted and we develop the application, we give it to you and so on. Such type of systems require a lot of involvement from your domain or people who are closest to the domain or people who are closest to the customers, because you will have to heavily prompt in or participate in the whole prompt generation, prompt design, prompt update, prompt
Yeah.
feedback,
Yeah.
parameters generation, instruct tuning, and whatnot. The whole process, right? So that these are the two things which I feel are
I agree.
kind
Yeah.
of acting as uh, a hindrance in these use cases getting implemented at scale.
No, I agree. I mean, if you have to look at a metaphor, the application in the application development world, it's more like painting or hiring painters to paint a garage. I mean, they'll paint, do a decent job. You go twice. I mean, that's sufficient from a supervision standpoint. But in the Gen AI world, building an application is like painting your house, your actual living room and dining room and kitchens and stuff, especially when there are like decorative paints involved as well, where the supervision is very high, the requirement or the involvement of the owner is very high, even if you hire contractors. Similarly here, the involvement of the customer is very high, highly required actually, in order to get the data right, in order to get the prompts right, and the use case right. So yeah, absolutely, yes, I agree with you.
Brilliant metaphor, Shiva. I'm going to use it without giving you credit for my client conversations now.
As long as you close deals, I mean, as long as client gets the requirement met, who cares? Yeah, good.
Absolutely, Shiva. All right.
What else?
We are entering, Shiva, and you're closer to this, obviously, like we are entering into the campaign times with the US elections coming up now, right? Well,
Yeah,
obviously, a lot of fake news is going around, what happened with Taylor Swift, all of us know. Although I'm not a big fan, but anything happening to anyone, right,
yeah,
for that
that was
matter, is
disturbing.
definitely
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely right. At the same time, there were a lot of images, showing Biden and Trump having, a meal at a farm or at a barn. Sorry, right. And then probably there were multiple other political campaign issues. But I think the first ban that we actually see, or big ban that we actually see, that OpenAI has brought in is for a company called Delphi, right, which is a startup, right, based out of California. Uh, and surprisingly, the co-founder in the startup, Krisilov, right, I think Matt Krisilov is his name, used to be the chief of staff at OpenAI, right? But he's obviously
okay.
denied anything, any involvement of OpenAI. The challenge, obviously, that of why GPT banned it, because it was mimicking, the candidate, right, called Dean Phillips, right,
Mm.
in terms of interacting with the users and so on and so forth, responding, not to certain extent camping, but mainly engaging with the
More of
users,
a
right? So
more of a
GPT
QA
banned
types. Okay.
exactly, right. GPT banned it, right, immediately. But one of the
No, why do?
updates
No, is question
so
is GPT not allowing people to launch politician bots?
that's correct. So, and that's
Ah,
what
okay.
my next comment is going to be, right, Shiva? That while this bot, at least to the extent that I know, was not campaigning, right? It was more of a Q&A bot. And so, if you remember, I think in 2018, when we were running Power Up, we also tried developing one Facebook bot for the campaign, right? But
For one of
what
the for one
GPT
of the
has,
for one of the for one of the
I
Kennedy
think
family
technically,
members.
correct, exactly, right?
No, Kennedy, Illinois based. Yeah.
Got it. Now, what GPT has done over here is they've just stating that any political activity the GPT models cannot be involved in. Right? They've not done a detailed thing. But then Christoph was immediately able to find a workaround for it. So what he stated is that right now, obviously, the bot is not live, but he's definitely going to move from GPT to open source model, but he'll get the bot live. Right? So The only thing
Yeah,
that is changing is it will not be GPT powered, it will be open source powered. So the only thing that I'm trying to highlight over here, right, Shiva, is that one, obviously, is people have ways to come around or work around some of these bans, right? Number one is the
yeah.
bans, right? Number two, I think, obviously, this is the first season that GPT is handling, right, at a democratic level, right? But I think they should also start publishing some of these guidelines with very intricate usage, right? So just giving a ban on usage of political activity, right? Because it might just be a Q&A bot which is just responding to the questions of the voters, right? Where do I go and vote? Like, where is the nearest voter bank? So on and so forth, right? So I think that's the only thing I'm trying to highlight. Currently, they've just given a blanket ban.
Okay.
So
I think we have more bands to come. Probably we'll see more and more bands that would come. Okay.
absolutely, yeah. All right, from OpenAI to NVIDIA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shiva. And there's a very, very good update, right? While again, we've yet to evaluate, but NVIDIA has come up with a set of ChatQA models, right? Which is ranging from 7 billion to 70 billion parameters, right? And the initial reports at least suggest that it performs, or the 70 billion ChatQA model, right, that NVIDIA has launched performs if or probably better than at least 3.5 turbo, but almost equivalent to GPT-4, right? Based on most of the parameters that they've tested it out.
And these
Right
are
now,
specifically for QA.
these are specifically for QA, and what they are actually promoting that Shiva, and you already know, right? And for our viewers, I'm just going to repeat this. Generally, when you do a regular QA with these models, it's called zero shot, learning,
Yeah.
because what you're just doing is you're just probably posing a question to the model, and model is leveraging its current
Yeah.
data set, right? You're not building any kind of specific data set that you want the model to respond to. You're asking the model to respond to the parameters that it's already trained on. So we've called that as zero shot learning, right? So a lot of times you don't have control on what it's responding to, right? It just depends on the type of question or how intelligently you ask the question, right? Now what they're actually saying is that even for zero shot learning, they've leveraged a two-step instruction tuning, right, Shiva? And that's where they're saying that earlier where zero shot was just a Q&A, right? They've actually built a step instruction tuning, which has improved this whole Q&A model itself, or zero shot learning model itself, right? Without obviously the customer or the user having to probably give any examples, which we actually do as few shot learning, right? So that's what they are stating, right? It's performing good. It's a good update. You have an equivalent to GPT, at least GPT 3.5 turbo, right? So good updates. NVIDIA
And
definitely has
is it
been a
open
leader.
source?
It's open source, Shiva. At least what I know from. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can actually consume but I think more from that perspective, right, what Nvidia is also trying to attempt, while this started off and I think we use this metaphor in one of our conversation, while the whole world is busy building flights, Nvidia is building the takeoff or the runway, right, for everyone to probably take off, right? But I think more and more what they started doing, like one of the updates that we had shared in our previous podcast was that Nvidia has given a starter connect with AWS, right, where you can actually go and leverage probably some of the Nvidia models out of the box from AWS. Now the Q&A model coming up, right? So probably I think they are also trying to try some of their consumption models rather than just giving the probably consumption layer or the infrastructure layer, right? So
I have a slightly different take here. See, we are seeing that customers are absolutely fine with GPT-4, and GPT-4 kind of meets 90% of the requirements anyway. With there are like already a gazillion models available in Hugging Face that you can look at. Uh, I mean, yeah. Then when I continue to think, the need for such models continue to go down unless and until customers want absolutely private deployments. And who wants private deployment, like fully private deployment, when very large corporations, government companies, etc. But otherwise, most of them settle for the hybrid deployment, where I will use OpenAI GPT-4, but rest all the data will remain within my cloud, etc. So they're kind of very open for that.
got it.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many, because the inflow of models are just very high. I mean, with Mistral and Llama available, people are building refined versions and launching. Even JP Morgan launched Docu LLM, which we covered in one of our earlier calls. Uh, yeah, there is not like very strong usage available right away. But let's see how things evolve over a period of time.
I think we've spent a lot of time. So I'll probably just give my view in 30 seconds. I think we've spent a lot of time on this earlier, right, Shiva? See, again, what's happening right now, and this is where this is any kind of a tech revolution, right? That there's a bloodbath initially, right? Be it the smartphone revolution, be it the wearables revolution. What's happening now with GenAI, right? It's a bloodbath in terms of everyone wants a pie uh, of the of the cake. What at least I'm very very excited this year about, and as we highlighted as one of our predictions is right that this market will slowly start emerging,
Hmm.
emerging, sorry, right, and number two, move towards sanity, where your metrics would not be context window, or where metrics would not be probably what everyone is playing on, the number of parameters and so on as well, right? The metrics would be on the usability side, right? So that's where probably the small language models or these domain specific models will start emerging, right? So yeah, so
I
that's
mean,
just my second view.
yeah, I think GPT, I mean, OpenAI's first mover advantage is massive here. I think the biggest loser is going to be Gemini because they are still yet to get a model competing with GPT-4. Anthropic also has a good head start by partnering with AWS, and now that leads us into the next discussion. Interestingly, FTC, Federal Trade Commission in the US, has launched major inquiry into tech companies, especially around their partnership, like Microsoft plus OpenAI, Amazon plus Anthropic. Google also is invested in Anthropic, right? So all this is happening, and Meta is partnering with IBM primarily. But Meta is still open source, but still there is an IBM partnership that is there. But Meta is not in focus now. It's primarily the closed source models like OpenAI, Anthropic. And they want to understand what is the rationale behind this partnership, what are the implications by and large to other customers and competitors in this space. And so that's just started. The whole investigation is interesting to see. Uh, Earlier in the day, I was listening to Brad Chesner and Bill Gurley. There's a new podcast that they've kind of started, which is this is the very first podcast that they had, the episode. I was listening to them, and they brought in this fantastic point, right? Why did Microsoft pour in a lot of money into OpenAI, and Amazon pouring a lot of money into Anthropic? In a way, if you see, that money is actually being paid back by these companies back to Microsoft and back to Amazon. In a way, it's kind of a round tripping to some extent where the money goes out, but from infrastructure usage, the money comes back into the company, and they also enjoy this 50% ownership or 30-40% ownership. That is one side of the story, right? Which is that money that comes in comes back to the infra companies. So infra companies continue to control the whole space. The other side of the story is what does this mean really? Like if you peel the layer and see, this means that even though the open source models are going to come, hosting them and running them is going to be a costly affair, which companies, which even very large enterprises will fray away, which means it eventually comes down to these closed source models like OpenAI and Anthropic to continue to grow further, like Gemini to grow further because they have the money power and infra power. And if companies want to use open source models, they will resort to SLMs, like small language models, instead of large language models. So the world will primarily look like, okay, I want better reasoning and more knowledge. I'll go to the closed source ones. I have all the knowledge internally and I don't want reasoning power. I want mostly just the word for, I mean, the phrase formation capability. Then I'll go for small language models. And that's how things will evolve. But this FTC, I don't know where it will lead to. Not, I mean,
I
the lobbies are very powerful. They know how to manage it,
I mean
but
it
it is
has
just
happened
a
like with,
small blip.
yeah, I mean that has on more more serious issues. It has happened against Google. It has happened against Amazon, and we know where they have ended up. Right? But Shiva, I have a third angle to this as well. Like you mentioned, obviously one is that they have invested because of return of investments, right? But I think why Microsoft invested in OpenAI to help build the model rather than Microsoft going itself and building the model. Same with Amazon and the other likes, right? See, these models today, no one knows probably where we go or probably what it actually generates or leads to, right? And I think Microsoft has already seen this firsthand with Microsoft Taybot. right? What happened probably when they released within a couple of days, hours, sorry, it became racist, and they had to probably face a lawsuit, take it down, blah blah blah. Now with this type of an arrangement, they don't own the technology. Shiva. These technologies, as I was highlighting, is quite unpredictable, at least at this point, right? It hallucinates till obviously you don't control these models. So tomorrow, if there's any issue that actually happens, they can always, uh, just find a way out, stating we were just the investors and we were not the creators of these models. So it's two. What I feel is one obviously is ROI, but second is they want to de-risk themselves. They're too big an organization probably to bet onto something like this right now before it matures to a level. So that's my take as well.
Agree.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not sure where this is. I honestly don't even feel what's the view of this inquiry. But one thing that definitely happened as soon as the inquiry was launched, Anthropic mentioned that a lot of data for the users got leaked. But what they've also mentioned is that was a manual leak, like someone by mistake shared that data outside where it need not be. It was not the model's fault, right? So
Got
so
it.
I mean, what it might help is probably understanding some of these nuances. But I really don't
And
think it's
and
gonna.
and Anthropic is also kind of have started increasing their voice by going after OpenAI. I think that pressure is coming from all sides, from Google and Amazon, probably to put more pressure on OpenAI to kind of hold back. Yeah, let's see. I mean, unless and until let's see what OpenAI has to launch this year. That'll kind of put things even more, make things even more crazy, actually.
Yep, yep.
So
All
last in
right.
the episode for the day, we have ElevenLabs, which is the audio AI company. They've raised 80 million, and the valuation is 1.1 billion, which is another unicorn in the space. But that's not necessarily should be the hero of the story. The hero of the story is why this company is raising so much money, because they are probably the leaders when it comes to um, identifying voice from an audio. Like if there are 10 people speaking, you're able to identify the voice far more accurately
Okay.
of 10 folks. But however, I mean, our team was doing a demo on this internally. We are trying to, we have integrated ElevenLabs to Lizer's voice SDK. We've integrated Assembly AI and Whisper, all these models. What we realized was, even though it can pick the voices, you need to still instruct how many people are there. You need to tell the model how many people are there, so then it can understand and map. Imagine if there are three people speaking in the video, in the audio, and if you say there are two people in the meeting or in the audio, it goes for, it still tries and maps, but it's not proper. But with the moment you say three people, the accuracy is far higher, far better. So this is good. I mean, that's what ElevenLabs is doing, and Assembly is trying to do the same. They also have new features like full-length dubbed movies as well. Like whole movies could be dubbed in multiple languages. So Mr. Beast now doesn't have to go and hire local translators in every country, which he does is fantastic that way. But he can actually use this platform and roll out in thousands of languages like in a go. And many more Mr. Beasts could come where they can, if as long as they prepare a viral worthy content, either be it in TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, they can actually go and publish that across globally. So yeah, I think
So,
all this research will need a lot of money, so makes sense why they are raising so much money.
but again, see, Shiva, what I always, and I think both of us always say is how do you make these models more? So, what are the use cases? For this type of a use, like a technology, definitely there are multiple use cases that we can think of, right? Like, I mean, just imagine how well this would actually help, police probably, understand crime, probably if they have to probably, isolate some voices and so on and so forth, right? So I think, yeah, so good update. Again, how does it get leveraged in practical use cases would
Now
be one thing.
think about a corporate scenario. Think about Walmart or Coca-Cola as a better example. Because they are global, right? So Coca-Cola creating an ad and using ElevenLabs, they can translate it into thousands of languages and
Exactly.
launch globally, right? Hundreds of languages,
Exactly.
not thousands, hundreds of languages and launch globally. So global brands could get benefited if they're entering a new market. If Coca-Cola is entering into a new country where they're not around, they can create any amount of content almost instantly with AI actually, be it video or audio or text. So yeah,
And these
big
type of
corporate. I
use
mean,
cases have
there are
already
use
been
cases.
solved, right? These type of use, like what happened with David Beckham's ad, right? Like, I'm not sure what they had used at the back end, but that probably was one of the most viral use cases in what you just mentioned, right? So, right, not only translated into multiple languages, but it actually, the whole facial expression and the whole, lip movement was actually aligned to each of that language, right? So it was not just dubbing that we generally do; it was actually alignment with the whole speaking and so on, right? But yeah, I mean, again, I'm really excited about the updates. So great, thanks again, Shiva, for joining us, right?
Pleasure.
And thanks viewers for continuously listening to this. As promised, Shiva and I are going to do a bare minimum of 52 of these, so at least a year long, right? But happy to bring in such updates. Happy to get your feedback, and we'll see you in the next episode. Then.
Bye, guys. Take care.